Treehouse of Horror is a staple of The Simpsons and a staple of Halloween. Every year I sit down and marathon all of the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror specials ready for the spooky season, so I think it's safe to say they hold a pretty special place in my heart. But this year, for some reason, felt a little bit different, and I thought to myself, which one is my favorite? I'd seen them all countless times, but I've never actually put them in an order and ranked them, so that's what we're doing today. There are other Halloween-themed Simpsons episodes that aren't technically Treehouse of Horror specials, so they won't be included in this video. These include the double episode length It parody, Not It, Halloween of Horror, Thanksgiving of Horror, and the soon to be released Simpsons Wicked This Way Comes. So without further ado, let's rank all of these Simpsons Treehouse of Horror specials that are currently released. Special number 1 all the way through to special 34. But since this is a Simpsons Treehouse of Horror ranking, I think it's safe to say there's only one way that we can fittingly transition into the next part of the video.
Hello, everyone. You know, Halloween is a very strange holiday. Personally, I don't understand it. Kids worshiping ghosts, pretending to be devils. Things on TV that are completely inappropriate for younger viewers. Things like the following half hour. Nothing seems to bother my kids, but tonight's show, which I totally wash my hands of, is really scary. So if you have sensitive children, maybe you should tuck them into bed early tonight instead of writing us angry letters tomorrow. Thanks for your attention.
Starting off with the worst of the worst, Treehouse number 27 kind of sucks. Hunger Games parody where water is in short supply, so Mr. Burns introduces a Hunger Games style contest in which Springfield's children fight each other for a day in Burns' personal reservoir. Lisa's imaginary best friend Rachel starts killing off Lisa's real friends out of jealousy, and Bart discovers that Moe and the other barflies are all secret agents. These segments are kind of just boring and forgettable, to be honest. Treehouse 21 isn't great. It spoofs Jumanji, Dead Calm, and Twilight, but none of them are really interesting, making it a pretty poor special. In Treehouse 29, we have Homer winning an eating contest against the mythical Cthulhu, Springfield gets overrun by body-snatching plants, Bart and Milhouse live in fear of Lisa's multiple personality disorder, and Mr. Burns opens a retirement home filled with literal old fossils. Cool parodies and ideas, but these segments just aren't interesting or entertaining enough. Treehouse 16 sees Bart teaming up with a band of rejected robots after being replaced with a robot boy, while in a coma in BI, Bartificial Intelligence. Homer and several characters are hunted for sport by Mr. Burns in Survival of the Fattest, and a witch curses costumed townspeople after losing a Halloween contest in I've Grown a Costume to Your Face. Besides Survival of the Fattest, nothing really stands out one bit. Frankly, Survival of the Fattest isn't even that special, but compared to the other two, I'd say otherwise. 24 kind of sucks. We get a Dr. Seuss spoof where Bart, Lisa, and Maggie go trick-or-treating with a destructive prankster known as the Fat in the Hat. Bart and Lisa get closer as siblings after a decapitation leaves Bart without a body, and a spoof of the infamous 1932 pre-code horror movie, Freaks. There's not really much good here, to be honest, and it's definitely one of the weaker specials. For some reason, Treehouse 32 has 5 segments instead of the usual 3. A Bambi spoof where the hunter who took out Bambi's mum gets what's coming to him. The Simpsons worm their way into Mr. Burns' wealthy lifestyle in a parody of Parasite. The trees outside the Simpsons' house come to life and exact revenge. Vincent Price reads Maggie a morbid poem about Bart. And a TikTok-style app curses Lisa in a spoof of The Ring. I don't get why they went with 5 segments here. To be fair, it's only 3 regular length segments and 2 interludes, but it just really makes the special feel overstuffed. Treehouse 25 is a kind of mixed bag. Bart and Lisa are transported into a demon-filled alternate universe. In a spoof of A Clockwork Orange, Homer falls for a girl and decides to leave behind his life of ultra-violence, but the gang leader won't let Homer go so easily. And finally, the Simpson family are haunted by the ghosts of what they used to look like and act like on the Tracy Ullman show before they got picked up as their own show. Yeah, it's not very good, but the last segment kind of saves it a little bit. Treehouse 15 isn't great. In the Ned Zone, a head injury gives Ned the power to foresee death and doom. 4 beheadings and a funeral sees Lisa and Bart as kid detectives out to find the mutton chop murderer. And in the Belly of the Boss, the Simpsons must go inside Mr. Burns to rescue Maggie after Maggie gets trapped in a vitamin capsule and Mr. Burns swallows it. The Ned Zone and In the Belly of the Boss are kind of fun, and 4 beheadings and a funeral is creative, but the 3 of them together don't make for a very strong special as they're not so great on their own. Treehouse 18 spoofs E.T. with E.T. Go Home, Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Mr. and Mrs. Simpson, and a loose parody of Seven with Heck House. This one isn't very good. The E.T. parody is fun, but the other 2 are just kind of boring. Big Treehouse special number 20 is next. Bart tricks Lisa into a crisscross murder plan. Springfield has a zombie apocalypse yet again, and Bart's immunity to Krusty's latest burger may be the key to stopping it. And a musical where Moe tells Homer to make the best-selling drink for his bar. For the 20th whole Treehouse special, I would have hoped this one would be a little bit stronger than it was. Don't Have a Cow Mankind is okay at best, but the other two are really weak. The most recent special, 2023's number 34, has only one good segment. Marge enters the blockchain to save Bart from becoming an NFT, a spoof of Silence of the Lambs where years after the events of the classic Simpsons episode Cape Fear, where a grown-up Lisa consults Sideshow Bob to help her find a serial killer, and a spoof of the pandemic where Homer becomes patient zero to a virus that turns Springfield into a city of fat, lazy, moronic slobs. If you couldn't tell, the best one was the Sideshow Bob special, arguably one of the best segments of recent years. Big number 30, and funnily enough, the 666th episode of the show overall. This special features a mission to rescue Milhouse from another dimension, dead Homer's spirit trying on some new bodies for size, and Selma finally finding love in an unlikely place. The basement. These are actually fun parodies of Stranger Things, Heaven Can Wait, and The Shape of Water, making this a decent and refreshing Treehouse special. I have a very soft spot in my heart for Treehouse 17, despite it not being that strong overall. In Married to the Blob, Homer eats green extraterrestrial goo and morphs into a rampaging blob with an insatiable appetite. In You Gotta Go Into Gollum, Bart finds a golem and uses it to play pranks and be destructive. In The Day the Earth Looks Stupid, the residents of early 1930s Springfield refuse to believe news of an actual alien invasion after being duped by Orson Welles' War of the Worlds broadcast. I remember adoring Married to the Blob and only ever going back to this episode for that story. The other two have some fun moments, but just aren't as strong in comparison. Treehouse 12 is a little bit weak. Hex in the City has the Simpsons visit a fortune teller's parlor. When Homer offends her with his usual antics, she curses Homer to bring bad luck and misery to everyone he encounters, leading the family to turn into freaks and his friends to die in horrible ways. House of the Wax is a 2001 parody where Marge buys a computerized upgrade for the house and picks a Pierce Brosnan AI voice option, which soon falls in love with her and tries to kill Homer. And WizKids spoofs the Harry Potter books, seeing Bart and Lisa as kid wizards who attend Springwarts Elementary to learn magic. While Lisa is excelling, Bart isn't, so he makes a deal with Lord Montymort to sabotage Lisa. This episode features some cool concepts and parodies, but overall each segment leaves a lot to be desired. I really like Treehouse 31. This year, the toys Bart once tortured and abused get their revenge in a really cool CGI segment. Homer finds a nickel slot machine that brings alternate versions of Homer into the current universe, and Lisa is cursed to repeat her 9th birthday. Compared to some of the other specials around 31, and especially just the regular episodes that were coming out at the time, this is a really good Treehouse. Treehouse 28 is actually pretty decent. There's a spoof of The Exorcist where Maggie is possessed by a demon, Homer accidentally ordered off of Amazon, a spoof of Coraline where Lisa and Snowball discover an alternate dimension where Homer, Marge, Bart, and Maggie are a functional, loving family that just want to make Lisa one of them, and Homer's appetite reaches new heights when he finds the perfect food to eat when there's nothing left in the house, that being himself. Overall, this was a really enjoyable Treehouse special and the segments in it were really fun. Treehouse of Horror 8 isn't really much special. In the Homega Man, Homer finds himself the last man on Earth due to a nuclear bomb until a group of mutants who used to be Moe, Sideshow Mel, Chief Wiggum, Dr. Hibbert, Krusty the Clown, and other male characters go after Homer to rid the world of past mistakes so they can make a better future. In Fly vs. Fly, Homer buys a matter transmitter from Professor Frink, but it's Bart who ends up using it after he and a fly switch bodies. Finally, in Easy Bake Coven, we go back to the days where women who didn't follow society's rules were accused of witchcraft and either died during the test to see whether or not they were witches or just burned at the stake due to the allegations of witchcraft. When Marge protests against the harsh punishments, she is accused of being a witch, which turns out to be correct when she survives getting pushed off a cliff. Now she and her sisters are plotting to kidnap all of Springfield's children and eat them. The opening and closing stories aren't that great, to be honest. Fly vs. Fly is really fun, but the other two segments really weigh it down, which is unfortunate because I think Fly vs. Fly is an all-timer. In Treehouse 19, Bart's new robot toy leads a revolution. Homer murders celebrities so advertisers can use their image without express permission, and a parody of the Peanuts holiday specials shows Milhouse summoning a pumpkin demon that attacks humans after learning pumpkins are used as food and decoration during the Halloween months. This starts and ends really strong, but the Mad Men parody in the middle just really never did anything for me. It's the Grand Pumpkin Milhouse is iconic though. Funnily enough, this is also the last Treehouse of Horror to use the 4:3 classic Simpsons aspect ratio, which maybe hints at a decline in the show. I have strong opinions on that. Treehouse 23 aired in 2012, so it opens with a non-parody segment where Springfield's subatomic super collider creates a miniature black hole that endangers the whole town, playing off how everyone thought the world was going to end in 2012. Then, in a spoof of Paranormal Activity, a collection of videotapes shows demonic activity in the Simpsons house late at night, which may have something to do with Marge's deal with the devil she made 30 years ago. And in a spoof of Back to the Future, Bart's trip to 1974 to buy a comic book when it first came out has some unintended side effects. This Treehouse special is really good, the Back to the Future parody surprisingly being the weakest, but the other two are really strong and both hold up 12 years later. Treehouse number 7 has some really cool moments. In The Thing and I, strange noises from the attic and Homer and Marge's weird behavior lead Bart to discover that he has a twin brother who wants to literally reconnect with him. In The Genesis Tub, Lisa's Tooth in Cola science project spawns a mini-universe thanks to Bart using static electricity. And in Citizen Kang, Kang and Kodos pose as Bob Dole and Bill Clinton, so one of them can win the 1996 US presidential election and finally conquer Earth. And Homer tries to warn people not to vote, or at least vote for a third party. The Thing and I is really strong, but the other two segments kind of hold it back a little bit. The Genesis Tub also has some really good moments. It's no The Thing and I. Citizen Kang though is kind of forgettable, but the other two are quite good. Number 9 is a bit of a mixed bag, but there's definitely some fun moments around. Hell to Pay sees Snake get executed on live television for smoking at the Quickie Mart, and his body parts get used for a transplant. Homer becomes the lucky recipient of Snake's hair, only to become possessed and go after the 3 witnesses to his final crime: Apu, Moe, and then Bart. In The Terror of Tiny Toon, Bart finds a plutonium rod in a family toolbox and uses it as a remote control battery, and he and Lisa get transported into the Itchy and Scratchy episode they're watching, and soon find out that the brutal, rib-tickling violence isn't so funny when it's happening to them. And Starship Poopers sees Maggie growing fangs and losing her baby legs in favor of tentacles. A visit from Kang and Kodos prompts Marge to confess that Maggie is a product of an alien abduction / one-night stand with Kang. To save Maggie from being taken back to Regal 7, the Simpsons and Kang and Kodos go on the Jerry Springer Show to solve their out-of-this-world custody problem. This one's full of iconic moments, but the segments on their own aren't that strong compared to some of the others. Treehouse 26 is pretty fun for a newer Simpsons special. Sideshow Bob finally kills Bart, but he's uncertain about what to do with his life after completing his mission, so he repeatedly brings Bart back to life just to kill him again. Then a parody of Godzilla where Homer is a giant monster that can only be calmed down with donuts, and in a spoof of the movie Chronicle, Lisa and Milhouse earn telekinesis from radiation, but Milhouse goes mad with power. All 3 segments are actually really fun, and the 2 that are parodies do really well at adapting the source material in the classic Simpsons fashion, and the original Sideshow Bob one is really strong. Treehouse of Horror 2 has the 3 tales of terror for this year come from Lisa, Bart, and Homer's eating too much candy before bed on Halloween night. In Lisa's nightmare, The Monkey Paw, Homer's monkey paw souvenir from Morocco makes wishes come true for his family and misfortune to befall on everybody else. In Bart's dream, The Bart Zone, Bart's omnipotence forces everyone in town to bow to his whim and think happy thoughts or incur his wrath. In Homer's dream, If Only I Had a Brain, Mr. Burns builds a perfect robot worker after firing Homer, but the experiment goes awry when Mr. Burns and Smithers go grave robbing for a brain and happen to stumble upon Homer's, who is actually just napping in the grave hole, as Homer would do. While The Bart Zone and If Only I Had a Brain aren't my favorite stories of all time, The Monkey Paw is so iconic, and that's the reason it's earned this spot. Treehouse 33 is actually quite good. We see Marge become possessed by a demon that feeds off her resentment and misery as a mum, spoofing the Babadook, a spoof of the anime Death Note where Lisa saves the world by writing names in a cursed notebook, and finally a Westworld parody where the Simpsons discover that they're all robots in a theme park, chronicling the show's history and memorable moments. All 3 segments are really fun, and the last one being one of the best of recent years. It even features a massive animation crossover, which was really cool to see at the time. And we are in the top 10. Number 14 is a whole lot of fun. We see Homer become the new Grim Reaper in Reaper Madness, Professor Frink bringing his dead dad back to life with interesting results in Frankenstein, and Bart and Milhouse getting a stopwatch that literally allows them to stop time in Stop the World, I Wanna Goof Off. Despite the darker themes of the first 2 segments, this is more of a light-hearted Treehouse special, and that makes it really enjoyable. Treehouse of Horror 22 is pretty decent. The diving bell and the butterball sees Homer paralyzed by a spider bite. Dial D for Diddley has Ned deciding to become a serial killer targeting those who have sinned, and it finishes off with a really cool Avatar parody in the Na'vi. Overall, this one was quite fun, and the Avatar segment really sells it. The first Treehouse of Horror of the 2000s, installment 11, features 3 really strong segments. Ghost Dad sees Homer die from eating broccoli and being sent on a mission to do one good deed before being let into heaven. Scary Tales Can Come True is a take on fairy tales that sees Bart and Lisa as peasant children kicked out of their own homes and forced to wander the forest, where they are taken in by a witch who is plotting to eat them. And finally, Night of the Living Dolphin. After seeing a dolphin take abuse at a marine park, Lisa decides to set him free and live in the wild, and doing so unwittingly dooms humanity when the dolphin marches onto land and demands justice for all the years of being abused and exploited by humans. Like I mentioned, 3 really strong segments, and Night of the Dolphin is a all-timer Treehouse segment. Going all the way back to season 2 of The Simpsons now, we have Treehouse of Horror 1. Treehouse 1 was the perfect way to launch this idea with 3 iconic stories. In Bad Dream House, the Simpsons move into a haunted house whose spirits urge them to kill each other. In Hungry Are the Damned, the Simpsons get abducted by aliens who may or may not be fattening them up for dinner. And finally, Lisa tells her spin on Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, where the narrator, played by Homer, is haunted by a raven, played by Bart. The special has the old school Simpsons charm and enough family-friendly horror to make this one of the best specials. And to round out the 90s, we have installment number 10. In I Know What You Diddly Iddly Did, Marge runs over Ned Flanders. After tricking Maude into thinking Ned is still alive and well, Homer throws Flanders' body in Maude's house and thinks the Simpsons got away with the murder following his funeral, until messages of somebody knowing that the Simpsons killed Flanders start appearing. Lucy Lawless guest stars in Desperately Zeking Xena, where an accident turns Bart and Lisa into superheroes, Stretch Dude and Clobber Girl respectively. Bart and Lisa are called to the rescue when Lucy Lawless is captured by the Collector, played by comic book guy, a supervillain who collects celebrities associated with geek entertainment. Finally, Life's a Glitch Then You Die sees a New Year's Eve party to celebrate the end of the 20th century. Homer discovers that his computer at the nuclear power plant wasn't made Y2K compliant, leading to a chain of disasters that cause a technological apocalypse. I Know What You Diddly Iddly Did and Desperately Zeking Xena are 2 of my all-time favorite segments, but Life's a Glitch Then You Die, in comparison, really falls flat, but I get them trying to round out the 20th century with this story. And making its way into the top 5 Treehouse special, in my opinion, is Lucky Number 13, which came out exactly 3 months after I was born, funnily enough. This one also features an opening sequence that scared the hell out of me as a kid. Anyway, much like the other things that happened in 2002, this special is great. Send in the Clones has Springfield being overrun by Homer clones thanks to a magic hammock. Lisa's call for gun control leads to zombie outlaws, and Dr. Hibbert runs an island resort where visitors get turned into animals in the island of Dr. Hibbert. Like I said, this episode is great. Great segments all around and some really iconic moments. Now that we're in the top 4, I gotta say, these 4 specials can really go either way, depending on how I'm feeling. But in number 4, we have Treehouse of Horror 6, which features the most iconic segment of Treehouse of Horror there has ever been, and my personal favorite segment. In the attack of the 50-foot eyesores, a freak ionic storm brings Springfield's oversized segments and billboards to life to attack the town, thanks to Homer stealing the Lardland statue's giant donut. In the Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace, groundskeeper Willie attacks school children in their dreams a la Freddy Krueger. And in Homer Cubed, Homer hides behind a bookcase to escape Patty and Selma visiting, and ends up in the fabled 3rd dimension. Attack of the 50-foot eyesores is cool, but it's definitely one of the weaker segments. Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace scared the life out of me as a kid, and Homer Cubed is hands down the best and the most iconic segment there has ever been. I just can't get over this segment. It goes into CGI. This was something the Simpsons never did. It's a little bit more common now, but this was groundbreaking stuff. Homer Cubed is hands down the best and the most iconic segment there has ever been in Treehouse of Horror, earning this episode such a high spot. Treehouse of Horror number 5 sees the Simpsons house sit for Mr. Burns and Homer come down with a nasty case of murderous cabin fever in The Shinning. Homer's attempt at fixing the toaster takes him back in time, where everything he does in the past affects the future in time and punishment, and the Springfield Elementary School staff resort to cannibalizing the students as means to solve their food budget and class overcrowding crisis in Nightmare Cafeteria. The Shinning is arguably the best direct movie parody The Simpsons have ever done. Time and Punishment and Nightmare Cafeteria are both super iconic as well. These factors combined make this arguably one of the best Treehouse specials. Man, Treehouse of Horror 3 just has a different charm to it. The Simpsons are having a Halloween party for the neighborhood kids and decide to tell scary stories rather than go out trick-or-treating. In Clown Without Pity, Homer buys Bart a talking Krusty doll that ends up trying to kill Homer. In King Homer, Marge goes on an island expedition with Mr. Burns and ends up as the sacrifice to a giant ape who just so happens to look like Homer. In Dial Z for Zombie, Bart finds a book on the occult at the school library and uses the spell to raise the family's dead cat, Snowball, back from the dead, only to bring back dead humans and cause a zombie apocalypse in Springfield. When I think of Treehouse of Horror, I think of episode 3, primarily that opening. All of these stories in this are top tier Simpsons segments and just some of the best written and funniest and most iconic Treehouse stories. My personal favorite Treehouse of Horror special is Treehouse of Horror number 4. It's just another one of those iconic Simpsons episodes that come to mind when I think of Treehouse of Horror. It's got that distinct Simpsons Halloween charm you just don't get anymore. This year's story sees Homer going to court over the ownership of his soul in The Devil and Homer Simpson. Bart freaks out over a gremlin destroying the school bus in Terror at 5.5 Feet, and Mr. Burns turns Bart into a vampire in Bart Simpson's Dracula. Like I mentioned, this special is just so iconic. When there weren't 30-something Treehouse specials, I would go back and watch all of the Treehouse specials every Halloween. I wouldn't go trick-or-treating. I'd sit home and watch Treehouse specials all night. There's something about Treehouse 4 that just holds such a nice spot in my heart. Homer trading his soul for a bit of a donut. Iconic. The Simpsons. What more do you want from Homer Simpson? The little gremlin attacking the school bus, nobody believing Bart until he kills Flanders. You don't get that anymore. And then Mr. Burns' vampire, when Bart and Lisa slide down the stairs and they stab Mr. Burns in the heart, but then he's like, oh, I missed. That's so funny, bro. Like I mentioned, this is just so iconic. The Devil Ned and Dracula Mr. Burns are just two Simpsons character models I adore and that have just never left my head since seeing it. When I think of Treehouse of Horror, I think of Treehouse of Horror number 4, and that's why it's my personal favorite Treehouse of Horror special. Wow. How spooky. Well, there you have it. Treehouse of Horror 1 all the way through to 34. Obviously, I didn't include this year's special because it hasn't aired yet, but I am looking forward to it. Apparently there's a Venom parody. That should be interesting. Maybe I'll update my rankings next year and add that one in. If you want to see that by next year, let me know. Let me know your Treehouse of Horror rankings. Let me know which special is your favorite, and let me know what you think of my rankings in general. Do you agree with some of them? Do you disagree? What's your favorite? Tell me. I'm so interested. What is your favorite? I even got into the spooky skeleton costume for this video. So if that's not enough reason to leave a like. Thank you all very much for watching this spooky Treehouse of Horror ranking, and I will see you next time. Happy Halloween, and bye for now. Jump scare! Did I Five Nights at Freddy's you? Guys, leave a comment if you stayed this late until the video. Wow, I've been Five Nights at Freddy's.